Good morning, everyone. Happy Canada Day, which I believe is July 1st. Independence Day for America, July 4th. We'll fill our air with fireworks. So happy to be with you today on this Happy Canada Day, July 1st, or whenever you are hearing about this. So topic for today is actually bigger than what I could title this. And my creativity was at its limits, and I thought, I'll just do this. So I titled this "Teaching Online: How to Pick a Topic." Let me frame that as to why I chose that as the topic. And if you can hear me, just give me a quick thumbs up in the chat. YouTube is fun. So it literally shows nothing is happening on the stream right now, but I think it is. So if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. I see a few people in the chat. Dan saying Happy Canada Day. Washington, Durtech, but I can't tell if that's happening now or if that was previous. So just give me a quick hello. Okay, so I'm going to keep talking as if you are tuning in. So the topic is teaching online how to pick a topic. But I want to frame this in a way that everybody teaches, or they should. A friend of mine told me about a job he once had, and he was amazing at it. And one day his manager met with him for his quarterly annual review. So it was the review period. And his manager is like, "You are doing an amazing job." Great. Thank you. Everybody can hear me. I feel at peace now. He said, "You're doing an amazing job at this role that you're in." And then, my friend was like, "Oh, thanks." And his manager goes, "And you're never going to move anywhere else in this company," which was like, wham, shock to the system. He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You'll never advance. You'll never grow into anything beyond what you're doing." And he's like, well, why not? And his manager said, "Because you are a single point of failure. And as a business owner, I can't lose you. I can't move you. I can't have anybody else do your job." So the secret, and you see where this is going, right? The secret to his advancement, and this is what if you get nothing else out of this live stream, I'm giving it to you right now. The secret to your advancement and moving up at a company or advancing in your roles is to teach others. If you're doing a job really well and you're the only one that can do it, don't think of that like, wow, I've got job security. That's like, I'm locked in this dead-end position because I will never be moved anywhere else. Because I can tell you behind the scenes, and I after I heard that story, I was like, yeah, I'm in management meetings all the time where we're like, oh man, what happens if that person leaves, right? We have those kind of discussions, but we never think about, oh, I think that person's ready to move up, ever. When we're thinking about those very specialized folks. So keep that in mind. So so let me reframe this now. When I say teaching online, choosing a topic, you can use this strategy to empower others that are at your organization, to teach them so that you're able to move on and do other things. You don't want to be, can I emphasize this? You don't want to be doing the same thing 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? You just don't. There'll be something gnawing at your soul and you'll never know what it is. You're meant to grow. It's how God made you, okay? So what I'm going to give you now, so you can use these strategies to figure out how to put these things together. So first off, I'm going to tell you what most people rely on that rarely works. Probably about 4 different things. I'm going to bring up my little notes over here. 4 different things that people usually rely on. 1, when people are trying to figure out, whether I'm going to, teach somebody else or teach online. How do I pick that topic? They rely on that divine inspiration, right? I'm just going to go for a walk. That's my famous thing. I love walking and thinking and processing and things like that. You're waiting for that lightning bolt moment to hit, and sometimes it does. And I'm not telling you what works. I'm telling you what most people rely on. And sometimes, I'm putting in the list for a reason. You're walking along and all of a sudden, oh, I've got a great idea. Or you're in the middle of a work project and you discover something amazing and you're like, wow, this would be really cool to show somebody. Or you're doing a home project. I was actually installing Ubiquity video surveillance. It was about a year ago, and I told my wife, I'm like, I'm so making a video series on how to do this, and she goes, Jeremy, think for a second. You're gonna show everybody how you do video surveillance on our house. And the funny thing is, I'm like, yeah, like it didn't even click. And she's like our house, like all the all the places you're watching, things like that. And I'm like, that this is how slow I am, right? So those, but that's a way people, like as you're doing a home project or something, you're like, oh, there it is. This is where most people go when they're trying to figure out a topic to teach online. They go to certification study, right? And these are all typical roads, and most people go to the certification study. Why? Because somebody previously has prepackaged everything for you. You know, if you think about, think about this. What is a certification? I mean, it's acronyms, right? It's an abbreviation you put after your name because you have studied and achieved something, right? Okay. Well, how did they put together all of that information? All they did is somebody, a team of people, looked at all the information online and said, we think this is what you should know. This is what we think is best. All they're doing is pulling topics together and putting them into a little pre-made palette for you. The reason I know you're like, what's your point? My point is, if you can figure out how to do what I'm about to tell you how to do, you've achieved something pretty amazing, because this is all certificate. If you look at a college degree, what is a college degree? I mean, all the information that you need for a college degree is available to you free online. Matter of fact, most colleges, you could walk into a classroom, sit in the back and get the information, and they would never even know you're there. It's all free, right? What's about? It's somebody saying, okay, there it is. That's the information that you should need to know, and I'm going to make a test that you have to pass on it, right? Organizing information. So when I say, how do you figure out what to teach online? Don't think of it as like, oh, this is a small, it's a big deal. Colleges wouldn't work without what I'm about to show you. So the problem, those are the four ways. The problem with those four ways is they rely on an outside force, like divine inspiration. You're walking along, you're like, oh man, hang on, I got an idea, right? And you're, so first off, you're victim. You're waiting for that outside force to happen that suddenly causes it to pop into your head. But all of these are impacted by what I call the curse of knowledge. I just took credit for that. That's not a term that I just made up. If you type it in Google, curse of knowledge, you'll see exactly what I'm saying. Here's the problem. Once you know something, it goes into the banks of your brain and is really hard to bring back out again. I mean, why do you get so frustrated with your kids when they don't know how to do something? You're like, don't you know how to do this, right? It's common sense. No, actually it's not. It's just somewhere in your brain, you've done this so many times, it's not even something that you think about. Think about driving a car, right? There's a great example. When you first started with that, it was so hard. You're like, oh my God. And then I can't tell you how many people I almost killed when I first learned how to drive a car. I was dumb, right? But now, not a problem. I do it without, it's not even a thought. And if somebody were like, hey, tell me how to drive a car, it would really take me, I'd be like, you just, right? You see where I'm going with this, right? You just go. You push, and then someone's like, well, what do I do at a red light? Oh yeah, red light. You need to stop. Like, isn't this dumb? This is common. Of course you know what a red, right? This is the curse of knowledge. Driving is a complex task that will take your child so many weeks, months, years to really get good at. And yet we can't think of the first thing when we tell somebody how to drive. This is the problem. So now, and this is all lead up to, here's how you figure out what to teach people online. I'm going to give you, and I'm going to give it to you quick, and I'm going to give it to you real, because this is what I do. I've been teaching for 20 years, and I've figured out how to overcome some of these barriers, right? How do you figure out your topic? I'm going to give you my best one first. Literally look at stuff. What? I mean, literally look at stuff and just start thinking about it. For example, it's funny, I didn't plan this, but as I walked in this morning to do this live stream, I looked at my desk and I go, good example. What's sitting on my desk right now? Fiber optic cable. This is actually a topic I taught yesterday. Matt, hey, want to see? Check it. Here, take a look at this. This is, oh, there's a hair. Get that off. So this is what I talked about fiber optic cable yesterday. I was, so why did I do this? I was creating a promotional video for some of the cabling services that we do at VIA. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, what would people want to know about cabling? And I was trying to frame it. I'm like, maybe business owners, maybe people that are interested in cabling. And I literally walked into my closet and I pulled out cable and I sat there and I stared at it. I go, I started having conversations with inanimate objects. Sorry about the focus. It's like, I want you to see that cable. And I'm like, fiber cable, what do I know about you? And literally, and that's where I start looking. I'm like, well, that is a multi-mode fiber cable. Why do I know that? Oh, because it's aqua and orange. And multi-mode fiber is almost always aqua and orange. And then I think, multi-mode fiber, would my kid know what a I'm like, no. Wait a sec. I think that's a good topic, and you can see right up here, why fiber? Like, and I'm sitting there almost having a conversation with this thing. And then I go to Google and I type in multi-mode fiber versus single mode fiber. Why? Do I not know the difference? I do, but I'm just looking for something that'll spur on some thoughts. And I see, of course, there's 1,000 pages, right? And I click on it and I learned something new. And I know you may be like, you didn't know this? So here's what I learned about single mode versus multi-mode fiber. Multi-mode fiber not only is plastic, I knew that, but they use LED lights to send the signal, whereas single mode fiber uses lasers. Now, I know some of you are like, everybody knows that, right? I didn't. And I've been talking about fiber for decades, right? I didn't know that. And so I was like, oh, that makes sense. That, not only is I had always attributed the distance, you see where I'm going with this, right? Why am I sharing this with you? Because as soon as I found out the difference between single mode versus multi-mode fiber, it's not just plastic and glass. It's literally the type of light that is being used to send. One's an LED light, one's a laser. And I was like, that's cool. Now I'm stoked about it. I'm like, that's really cool. And so that energy that I feel when I discover something new transfers right into the video. Everybody's like, why are you so hyped about everything all the time? Because most of the time when I'm talking about it, I learned something new about it just a moment ago. And I'm like, I'm so excited to share this because I thought this was really cool. I didn't know LED and laser. That's cool, right? So topic number one, literally look at something. And I'm not just talking, I know you're like, okay, that works for networking. No, I mean, log into Azure, stare at the interface, click on, manage Active Directory, right? Stare at the users and go, okay, need to create a user. Oh, wait a sec. Where am I going to put that user? Oh, there's this structure here. I bet you somebody doesn't know about this structure in Azure. Defaults are, how should I do that structure? Is there a best way? I'm in a panic moment. What do I do? Like boom, right there. You got your topic and you may not even know it. You may be like, I need to figure out what's the best structure to create in Microsoft Azure for my users and groups, right? Google, create a little thing and bam, you just got an amazing training topic that not only got you excited, right? But it got the next person excited. Honestly, my cord is, I forgot something. Hang on. There it is. You want to know so this cord, that goes to my ear, it slowly slips down my shirt. You ready for my high-tech, how do I keep that from doing that? Binder clip right there. That's the secret to, so when you see Jeremy looking all pretty, he's held together with paper clips and binder clips, right? So there you go. Okay, next thing. Hey, by bringing up my notes, I hid the chat. So let me just check on the questions real quick and buzz through a few of those. A lot of hellos. One day I subscribed, didn't remember why I did. Best to say, okay, great. Okay, great. I'm seeing a lot of people so no questions, but a lot of people loving the topic. Great, and I thought that you would. Okay, so what's my next strategy for doing this? So again, curse of knowledge. When somebody's okay. Let me go back to the curse of knowledge. Curse of knowledge is the same thing when somebody, say you're a funny person or you say a lot of funny things, and somebody comes up and they're like, tell me a joke, make me laugh, right? Like, what do you do with that? Like, it's that same thing. You're a funny person, right? You know a lot of jokes, but when somebody's like, tell me a joke, it's like, tell me something informative. Tell me something interesting. You start to feel really dumb really quick because with that curse of knowledge, you're like, I don't know what I know. Right? And I know this is connecting with a lot of people. When somebody's like, teach me about networking, teach me about, a technical skill, you're like, and before long, you're like, maybe I'm not that smart, right? It's not that you're not that smart. It's all just in there. So the next thing that you can do to try and get that out, besides just literally looking at something, whether it's physical or virtual, is to get a map out of your calendar and say, what did I do this week, this month? Right? What did I do this month? You did something, right? Hopefully. And you may go through a little of this. You're like, I don't think I did anything. You did something. Yeah. Like look at your time entries, or if you've never done a time entry, if you've never blocked time on a calendar, if you have no email, if you don't exist, then start a new discipline and just get a piece of paper and write down what you're doing every 15 minutes. So take a given day. Set a little timer on your phone every 15 minutes, write down what you do. And that'll help you not just in what I'm talking about now, but that'll help you in really managing your time, right? And at the end of the day, look at your time and find out, what am I doing with my time, right? In doing that, you're going to say, this morning, I'll grab it. I had to log into PRTG, look at the sensors and find out what alarms there are. Okay, how did I know what to look for there? Start asking yourself questions. How did I know? And before long, you're going to be like, hey, here's in the role of a NOC engineer, here's what it takes every morning. And now I'm getting a little marketing buzz around me. What you should do every morning as a NOC engineer. There's your video, right? How to check for key alarms. How do you react? So, okay, take the next step. You see a red alarm. You're like, oh yeah, this morning there was one of our sites that had a server outage, right? What'd you do about that? Walk through the steps that you followed and jot down. Well, actually, I checked, is the DRAC online for the server? I accessed the DRAC, found out that I didn't have the username and password. Username and password. Best practices. Where do I store my username and password so they're safe and secure? That's a video, right? These are training topics. Hey, these are things that we can start assembling together. Things that you do in your workday. These are things that you would only get oftentimes by using the discipline I just gave you. Every 15 minutes, jot something down. What did somebody call you about to discuss? Look at your phone log, right? You see all these people and you're like, oh, Chris, what did he call about? Oh, Mike, what was he calling me for? Oh, Mike wanted to find out if I could set up a projector in the conference room, right? And I know you're like, well, that's dumb. No, it's not. There's a lot of people that don't know how to set up projectors in the conference room. There's a lot of people that plug it in and the resolution's all jacked up and the image is on diagonal. What's the best way to set up a projector in a conference room? I guarantee you your help desk folks are going to want to know that, right? How do you make sure, how do you make sure that people coming in with all these different laptops can connect to the projector? They don't have HDMI ports on their laptop anymore, right? Everybody wants it easy, wireless. Do I buy a Surface adapter? Do I buy a Roku and jam it in there? What's the best way to connect to you see where I'm going with this, right? Just thinking about your day and thinking about, well, would somebody need to know how I did the things that I did, right? You can even take that personally. If you don't have a technical job, poke around the house. Like for instance, yesterday, 2 days ago, I use Synology, right? I love Synology, NAS. I upgraded to their release candidate for DSM 7.0. Why? Because I got an email and I thought that'd be cool. Duh. So dumb. I upgrade. It's great, by the way, but I upgrade and they're like, oh, all our packages aren't ready yet for DSM 7.0, like DS Video, which is the application that I use to stream movies to a lot of the TVs in our house, right? So I'm like, oh, DS Video. And sure enough, my little 2-year-old, walks up. I want to watch Praise Baby. We have everybody remember Baby Einstein. We have these videos called Praise Baby. They're like worship songs, and they just play to beautiful backgrounds and kids walking around. And I'm like, oh. So what did I do 2 days ago? Because I blew up my Synology DS Video because it doesn't work. I set up a Plex server, and it was annoying, but it was cool when I figured it all out. Something like that. How to set up a Plex server for the first time. How to create a media library that you can get there. How to set it up to where you can get your Plex server on your phone streamed in HD quality because you have to have certain ports open on your firewall in order to do that. How to do it all for free. 5 videos right there, 5 different topics that you could put together. That you see where I'm going. Think about the stuff that you do and then start breaking it down into what you did, and recent is best. The further it fades into the sunset, the more like how to do algebra, right? Back in high school, you probably knew that like an ace. Not so much anymore, right? It all blurs into that big blob of knowledge. What books are you reading? That's a plethora of great topics, but start thinking about the books that you're reading with intentionality. Most people read books like I do, sitting on a bed, it's 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, doing the nod thing. I'm like, okay, this is good information, right? You can't do that if you're planning to teach topics. As you're going through the book and you're like, every chapter has a heading. Every, in the chapter, they probably have subheadings. Each one of those, start thinking like, hey, I'm going to teach this to somebody the next day, right? Whether you do or not, there's a saying, the best way to learn something is to teach it. And it's absolutely true. And this could be, one of the pieces of advice I give to people when they're first getting started in technology is I say, start a blog, start a YouTube channel, start a something that people can subscribe to where you start posting day after day what you're learning. It's good for you. It's good for them. And in the end, that can turn into a whole bunch of potential opportunities. Go on LinkedIn, create a bunch of articles that are attached under your profile. And people are like, wow, this guy, this gal, she really knows her stuff. You know what I mean? I've hired people just by looking at their LinkedIn profile. I'm like, wow, she's got some great writing. Forums, Reddit, both places. When you're stuck on something, what do? You go to Google, right? How do I fix DS Video? How do I, like for example, the way that I figured out DS Video was broken in DSM 7.0 in Synology was I Googled it, and it took me to a Reddit page where there's a bunch of other people that ran into exactly what I'm doing. And of course, they ask, why'd you upgrade so early? Like all those kind of things. But you look at some of those responses, boom, right there is a training idea. Video post, upgrade to DSM 7.0. Here's what you do about DS Video, right? Which is cut ties with it and install a Plex server and start building from there. Last thing, last way of figuring out topics to teach is to start diving into your non-primary skills. What I mean by that is, like for instance, my skill has been primarily technical. As I jump into skills that aren't primarily technical, for instance, management, maybe project management, maybe accounting, like as a business owner, I've had to dive into a whole bunch of things that I would have never learned on my own, right? But as you dive into these primary skills, you start thinking, this isn't so bad. I can learn this. I can be an accountant. I can be a project manager, yeah, right? It seems easy at first, but as you're learning those non-primary skills, your mind is wide open and receptive when it sees something new, right? The perception you have as you're learning a new skill will never be had again, right? Curse of knowledge, it becomes easy when you're done. So as you're learning that new primary skill, like for instance, when I first started getting into project management, learning the CAP-M and PMP certifications, when it was like, hey, there's I'm like, what was it? There's 6 knowledge areas. Here's the 6. I'm like, oh, this is great. 6 knowledge areas. Here's what that, ooh, wow. And so as I started creating some videos on project management, I was like, this is the most amazing thing ever. Now, for people that have been there for years and years and years, they're like, yeah, 6 knowledge areas. Not even a thing anymore. Like, I don't even think about that. But for somebody new getting in, they've got that same buzz that I do, where they're like, oh, I didn't know they've boiled it down to 6 knowledge areas, right? That's a unique perspective that you're only going to have as you're diving into a new skill. That isn't what you do on a day-to-day basis. That's it. I'm going to take the next 10 minutes. Sound good? Going to go a little bit longer this morning. Next 10 minutes, just to take questions on things or thoughts that you're having as I'm going through. So I'm popping the chat out now. So ask questions if you have any questions that are coming in. Let me bring the chat over here so I can see it. All right, I'm going to just start from the bottom up. Washington, I just graduated from college. I think I have a lot to learn and a little to teach. See, Washington, you have the curse of knowledge. You just diagnosed it right there, or I'm diagnosing it on you, right? You just graduated from college. You just went through 4 years of nothing but education. And you're still saying, I think I have a lot to learn and a little to teach. Two comments on that. One, you have a ton to teach. 4 years at least of education to get completed with that college. Even if you bailed on college 1 year into it, you still have a year of education. The challenge that you're running into right now, Washington, is that you're like, it's all in the blob. It's the curse of knowledge, right? So here's an idea. Start going, if you just graduated from college, look at your last year classes. What were they? Start flipping through the books. What did they test me on? What was my quizzes about? Start pulling out the nuggets. I guarantee you there's stuff in there. You ever, what's the guy? Khan Academy. You ever hear of the guy Khan Academy? He created a whole they may be even in the billions right now, multi-billion dollar company simply out of a black whiteboard with fluorescent pens that he would draw on his screen to help his nephew learn stuff about stuff, math, English, right? All Khan Academy was a guy trying to teach his nephew. And he posted it on YouTube, and other people are like, that's pretty cool. I want to watch that. FD, how important is learning financial literacy when working in tech, especially for younger people just getting started? Financial literacy. I would suggest that financial literacy is not, we all know the basics. That's too expensive. That's less expensive. We like less expensive things, right? As long as it's stable, reliable, and consistent, right? So that's probably about the financial literacy that you need in tech. The rest of the stuff you will pick up along the journey into technology. Jeremy's opinion. Let's see. Joseph, sounds like there's a need to be intent to create. Sounds like there needs to be an intent to create. Thank you. Always thinking about what you're learning and observing that could help others. Yeah. The challenge is when you're in it, responding to that. So let me rephrase that a different way. Having a sense of intentionality around you when you're learning stuff that you're going to eventually teach this is helpful. Absolutely, yes. But what I've found, this is Jeremy speaking for himself, impossible for me to do. If I'm, like, for instance, if I have a certification book in front of me and I know I'm going to be teaching it, my mind is more so on how do I explain this? How do I break this down? Okay, I get that. That makes sense. How would I explain? Like, that's my mindset. If I'm doing something, I don't have that mindset. I can't. It's like being double-minded, right? I can't do that. If I'm building something, I have to focus on building it. I've tried for years, forever, because I'm like, this would be the most amazing thing. If I'm like, for instance, if I'm configuring that Plex server, if I could document it all as I go, and this is what I ran into, oh man, this really got me stuck. I was stuck for an hour on this. And like I would love to do that. And I've tried to do that. And it's a double-minded thing. You end up doing both poorly. Like you never finish the project because you're so busy documenting all of the, and I ran into this and right. And then at the end of the day, you get frustrated and you just start skipping steps and you're like, okay, I'm just going to do that. Unfortunately, and I don't mean to be a downer, but sometimes going back after you've done something is the only way that I've found to say, okay, let me now outline this with my brain focused on teaching. Now, that's me. I'm a very, you get the idea? I'm a hyper visual person. I draw pictures for everything. I live on whiteboards. I know not everybody's mind is as limited as mine. I'm a, tunnel focus. And if I start trying to do many things, I fall apart. Let's see. Okay, Oliver is asking, LED versus laser, just the frequency, what's the difference? He's like, tell me more about the fiber. Topic for a different time. Other new things coming in. Dan is saying, I have the knowledge to teach. It's the approach I'm not sure about. That's actually something that I'll probably talk about in another one of these videos. How do you find your approach? Actually, I've recorded videos about this. What's your best way to teach? And it may or may not be video. It may be podcast. It may be just using PowerPoint slides or demonstrations on screen with a voiceover. It may not be any of those things. It may be writing a killer blog. And I will say, when I Google something, I'll see a whole bunch of videos on how to do it, but if there's a great write-up on it, I'm in the write-up. Video is great, but roll of the dice. Can I understand them? Do they have a heavy accent? Are they just blabbing on about, some of you are looking at me like blah, 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 right? So sometimes the approach, I'll talk about the approach in a totally different video. Good point, Dan. Gabe, you really don't realize how much you know until you start training people on what you know. We start to unknowingly build muscle memory on things new learners don't even know exist. 1,000% agree. And that I would say that is a great way of restating the curse of knowledge. You don't know what you know, right? It all goes into a big bucket. Let's see, Lucas, how to become let me rephrase it. How do you become a master at troubleshooting mastery? That is one of the things. And by the way, troubleshooting videos are probably some of the hardest videos to make. One, because it's not crisp and concise. It's, oftentimes there's not a book that you're following. This is like, hey, this is what I ran into. So it's very real world centric and experience centric. What you experienced may not or may be what somebody else has experienced. Troubleshooting mastery only comes from doing it. And that's why good certification exams, which many vendors used to have, but they were actually ruined by a lot of brain dumps. Good certification exams will ask you questions around troubleshooting. What would you do if you saw this, this, and this, and this, right? Because there's no factoid you can memorize to prepare you for that. Most of the time it's like, have you done that? Have you seen this, this, and this before? Because if you haven't, then you're going to struggle, right? Man, my mic is just pulling itself off. Last question. Exposed to internet. I'm struggling to retain knowledge if I don't use it on a daily basis. Any advice? Honestly, that's just the way it works. I was having a conversation with Keith Barker. Some of you know him. I used to teach with him all the time at KnowledgeNet, even CBT Nuggets. So Keith Barker, I said, I talked to him. I said, so what you doing today? And he goes, learning the same things I knew a couple years ago all over again. And I go, I know exactly what you mean. It's just the way our brains are wired. Now, we are wired that if you don't use it, you lose it, right? We all know this, but it's just discouraging because we study all this stuff and a few months from now, it's all gone. Application is everything. And I can tell you, even after teaching it, it all fades away. If you were to ask me a lot of stuff I knew about Windows, Microsoft Windows Server, which I still do here and there, But most of that is faded into the sunset. But here's the hope. Here's the positive exposed to internet on that question. The second time you learn it, it is so much faster than the first time. The first time you're walking into a dark cave where terms and verbiage is like, what? The second time you learn it, snap. You're like, oh yeah, oh, okay. Those kind of things happen so much more, which speeds up your learning to the next thing. Good. Application is everything. Naomi just made it in. What's going on? We're just wrapping up. So in summary, this gives you a lot. If you rewind to the first probably 20 minutes of this conversation, this gives you the ability to take all of that blob of knowledge that's in your head, that curse of knowledge, if you will, that is like, I'm not sure what I know, right? And gives you the ability to break it down, whether you're doing it to train people on site, whether you're doing it to create YouTube videos, create blog entries, whatever the case is. The strategies that I outlined in this video will help you do it. Because when you're trying to think of all those things, this is the way. That said, I will see you guys next Thursday. If you have any thoughts on topics, love to see it in the comments or the chat on the side. See you soon.